Welcome back, everyone, and for those who are new or unaware, I give a Steam code for a free game away with every video I do, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment that wouldn't violate Twitter's terms of service. Make sure you have contact info in your YouTube profile so I can reach out to you. A complete list of games to choose from is in the description below. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a chance to win. Now on with the show. I'm playing something almost every week, and sometimes I want to talk about it and give you a vertical slice. So stick with me for some lightning reviews. This week on the chopping block. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm back, and this week I've been playing Stray. I decided to give this game a shot at examination for a couple reasons. First, my collector brain for some reason wanted to track down a PlayStation 4 copy. In fact, I acquired my copy from the GameStop website for about $40 when a lot of less diligent consumers were paying scalpers amounts in excess of $100 on eBay. The second reason I wanted to track down a copy was the fact that this game apparently won Best Indie Game at Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards. If you'll indulge me for a brief side note though, up until this past year, I'd never watched The Game Awards, and having experienced them this time through, I will never experience them again unless Valve gives away more Steam Decks. I may make a video tearing down The Game Awards as an event and how it's ultimately detrimental to the industry, but that's a discussion for another time. I'll just summarize here by saying, Jeff Keighley and his overhyped marketing event. Back to Stray. I also discovered that Stray was published by Annapurna, which, according to research I did for this video, was founded in part by one of the developers of that game company, which is responsible for Journey, one of the best games ever made in my opinion. Whatever quality that relates about the game itself, we are about to see. Stray starts with you playing as a cat in some dilapidated drainage infrastructure. You spend some time getting basic movement and camera controls, and then you're given some prompts that show you how to interact with the world by being a cat at your fellow cats. Then you're introduced to platforming elements, but it's in a very restrictive manner. The immediate reference that I came up with was the platforming in Enslaved Odyssey to the West, where you basically press the button when prompted to do so, and you follow a very strictly linear platforming path that eliminates a fair amount of the challenge because the platforming is basically pre-scripted. For the record, I'm not considering that good or bad, it just is. It means, though, that the later elements of platforming and exploration are limited to areas that the game says you are allowed to jump to because otherwise there is no jump function. Anyway, after a brief segment where the basic mechanics are introduced, a cutscene happens where you are separated from your feline siblings, and then the game starts proper. Eventually, you acquire a little drone companion that allows you to interact with the story elements of the world as something of a narrator and audience surrogate, because this game portrays you strictly as a cat that can't talk, although there are some confusing elements to that, but I'll get to those later because they're my chief issue. You then stumble across a society of robots where you effectively get immersed in their story. I'll avoid spoilers by and large, but I will relay that it dabbles with a desire of freedom from a society that has deliberately gone into lockdown. Then there's a brief window of transhumanism, followed by the enabling of a resistance against an unspecified authority, and eventually liberation. In my opinion, the narrative serves as an adequate device to move you from location to location, but if I had to pick out a strength for storytelling and immersion, it was definitely the environment. The areas you wander are highly detailed, thoroughly fleshed out, and feel comprehensive and lived in. The story itself is serviceable, but I wanted to know more about the world itself and the happenings that ultimately left it in the state that we currently find it. Honestly, I couldn't care less about the cat, and that's not just because I'm more of a dog person. I'm not saying I hate cats, I just like dogs more. In the end, I find my own personal story a lot less engaging. That criticism ramps up to 10 when you encounter the danger zones, where you have to avoid and for a limited segment fight against what effectively look like cyclopic head crabs. And just when you think you're settling into a stable perception of what you think the world is, you stumble across what I can only describe as borderline eldritch horror. I feel very seen in these rooms. I'll reiterate, I want to know what caused the world to have this stuff start happening to it. Through clips and memories that your drone buddy can find, you do get a little bit of establishment to this effect, but nowhere near enough to satisfy myself. And speaking of being unsatisfied, I'll now move to my chief criticism. The best way I can phrase it is a dissonance of character. This partly comes from my mindset where I want to try and get immersed in the character of a protagonist and play as their role, and in this scenario, I'm a cat. Domesticated house cats, by my understanding, don't give a shit about most things other than where they have a warm place to sleep, something to eat, and a caring owner that can pet them when they desire attention. So I find myself at odds with the narrative of a cat having a desire to aid a resistance and explore an abandoned world where by most metrics, they would have stopped moving around once they got to the first hub area and would have been perfectly satisfied to be receiving scratches from the robots. Additionally, I find myself also occasionally being confused by the level of comprehension and communication that the cat is capable of. Obviously, we do most of our communication and relaying of narrative through our drone companion, but other times it seems the cat is perfectly understanding of everything that's going on, although that could just be by the simple virtue that it's the player that's controlling them. It gave me vibes akin to Brian and Stewie from Family Guy, where they seem to be communicating as intellectual equals with human adults, and then in other moments they are reverted to being interpreted as a dog and baby respectively.
Yeah, I don't get it. So, Like, can the family understand the baby, or what's the deal with that?
Except it's not being played for laughs, and I want the game to figure out which lane it wants to stay in from a character aspect. All in all, I finished Stray in about 5 hours, and having experienced it, I can't necessarily say it's a bad game, but it's one that I also have little desire to return to, and honestly, I think that its designation as Best Indie Game, according to the game adverts, leaves this game with a sense of pretentiousness that I can't help but feel has received most of its attention because people like cats and want to pet the protagonist chubby cheeks. Now, if you'll excuse me, the final issue of the Beastars manga just came out, and I want to read it. Hey, look at that, it's the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and remember that commenting can actually win you a free prize. So until next time, this is Gheeotine saying thanks for watching and keep your head on your shoulders.